Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where exactly you are at in the world. This is Supply Chain Digital Days, and today we're honored to welcome 4 members of FM Logistic to our show. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that the Agora Managers Club is organizing the Startup of the Year contest. The winner will be chosen by vote, and you viewers are the ones who get to vote, so please exercise your right to vote by clicking on the link provided in the comments section. In no particular order, today joining us are Charlotte Migne, Sustainability Director of FM Logistic, Christophe Menivard, General Manager, Russia and Eastern Europe, Yannick Buisson, General Manager, France and Western Europe, and Xavier Prévost, Director of Business and IT Solutions. Today, we're going to talk about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global supply chains, and we're going to debate whether a greener, more responsible supply chain is still a realistic option. Yannick, would you do us the honor of presenting your company?
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. So we are part of FM Logistic. FM Logistic is a French and international companies. We are operating in 14 countries and delivering services as warehousing, transport, co-packing, and supply chain services for our customer. Our customer are mainly FMCG players, and we have been very involved in the recent period about COVID, and I think this is what we will share today.
All right, thank you. Now, Charlotte, as a sustainability director, can you tell us, as a global player, what it's been like to deal with the COVID-19 as a major company?
Yeah, sure. First, it's been a shock for everyone, as for every company. But due to our geographical positioning, I would say we faced COVID situation from a very, very early stage. We are based in Wuhan, in China. We are based in Lambertia. We are also very strong in L'Oise, in France, in the region which was firstly touched by the virus. So we had to react very, very quickly to make sure that we implemented the prevention measures while they were issued by the governments, and even sometimes before they were issued by the governments. So I think it was quite a challenging positioning to be on the first stage of that. And so what we try to do is to react with key, let's say, 4 guiding principles. So this is what we acknowledge a posteriori, I would say. The first one was that we really wanted to push full transparency among our teams. Transparency about the situation for FM people, about the situation about our potential difficulties, procurement difficulties, as everyone, about the rationale behind the prevention measures. So transparency was the first key point. The second one, I would say, was really capitalization. Due to our geographical positioning, we had like an advantage, I would say, in capitalizing for the experience from the first touch countries. And we also deeply shorten, I would say, process decision. If I take one example, a question that was raised at 8 o'clock in the morning was discussed within the hours with all sustainable development directors in the countries, was then checked with our medical advisor, and at 10 a.m. we were able to present that in front of the general managers and to be implemented the decisions during the day. So it was really a short decision process that I think we should capitalize also on the long term on that. The third principle was definitely progressiveness. We really tried to be in line with the government measures, for sure, but we also put as a first principle to remain agile, to increase step by step the level of prevention, and such as now to decrease it a little bit when it's relevant in some countries. And the last point, which was really key in this crisis management, I would say, was hyper proximity with the teams. We definitely were on the ground, and Christophe will probably comment that more than I did, but we were really, really close to the teams to ensure the trust of them. Also with the customers, we had the dedicated top-to-top on COVID issue almost several times a week. And above all, we even implemented a pulse survey among the teams to make sure that the mood was okay for the teams, and that we could already anticipate the next steps for the actions, and also take feedback, especially on a working mode for the future. So was more or less the 4 principles.
How did you manage that communication with your teams? How does that translate in daily life? Is there daily calls, daily emails, daily videos, or how did you manage to do that?
On the top, at the climax of the crisis, we had 7 crisis calls during the week, 2 with the general managers, 2 with the international SD network, 2 with the transport community, 2 with the sales community. So let's say network communication was really much activated. And then it's more on a country basis. It was a email or a team management communication on the field every day, every week, every month.
Okay. Christophe, as a Russia and Eastern Europe manager, how did that impact your operations, and what solutions did you implement on the ground?
Hello from Moscow. Generally speaking, we were able to keep all our activities open and operating worldwide, with some minor exceptions in Spain or India. But wherever we were, even in some major clusters like in Wuhan, like in Crépy, we were able to continue and to go forward, ensuring first the safety of collaborators. Thanks to 2 major reasons. First, our clients' portfolio and the content of the client's portfolio, which is composed of FMCG and retail clients, and which is very resilient towards the crisis. And our collaborators, their fantastic dedication, their loyalty, and their remarkable engagement during this period of time. And these 2 pillars are in fact the result of 50 years history. To come back to Moscow, to Russia, it was a quite surprising experience. In fact, the COVID outbreak had 2-3 weeks of delay with France. Then the lockdown was announced and declared 29th of March, and the release started 9th of June. And in one end, it was quite easy to manage the crisis, thanks to the sharings with corporate, with Charlotte, thanks to the learnings from other countries. We discuss a lot with Yannick, based on learnings of France, of Italy, or of China. And it was easy because we knew what to do and when to do it. We banned the travels rapidly, international flights, national flights. We set up a temperature control in all business units, organized disinfection of buses. We set up hygienic measures, imposing the usage of masks, and we transferred 700 people in home office regime in 1 week. But the main difficulty was not to take the decision, in the proper time, was to take to make the decisions applied and respected, and to convince that the people, that the COVID outbreak will also concern Russia, will also concern Moscow. Then the main difficulty was to manage permanently the misalignment between the measures that we were imposing to our collaborators and the collective belief that it will not happen. And it was a quite interesting experience. During a long time, I heard from my collaborators, it's not for us, it's a flu. The preventive measures taken are exaggerated. And fortunately or unfortunately, the evolution, the progression of the outbreak, the pandemic helped to decrease this misalignment. For our team, it has been a lot of efforts, a lot of time in terms of communication, in terms of pedagogy, to fight and tackle the collective belief.
I would imagine it did.
Sorry?
I would imagine it took a lot of persuasion.
And we still have 7,000 new cases appearing every day.
But the general belief in Russia, as you said, is it's not real. So, and the government is basically giving that message that it isn't real. So how as a company do you manage to convince your people that, well, they have to wear the mask anyway, regardless? How much psychology goes into that?
we have a chance to have an international network. And the fact that we are communicating with other countries, it was easier to convince people. Finally, it's not just a unique point of view which can be mine. It became more and more factual with time. Then with the progression, finally, for people, it became obvious that it was a reality, and all the measures that we have taken were mandatory to ensure the safety. But it's a lot of communication, propaganda, explanation, pedagogy to have the basic rules respected, in fact.
Is it a case where you get to say, look, we're a major international company, everybody else is doing it, you have to do the same thing, we're implementing the same measures, and you have to abide those safety measures?
But we have a chance also to have many international clients who implemented very rapidly also some preventive measures. Then we were not alone versus the rest of the local context. Then through our clients, even some Russian clients, they launch home office regime sometimes significantly before the first alerts or signals. So we have a chance to have an international network. We have a chance to have international clients who help us also to make it real.
Yes, and
okay.
the international. What was very important in what Christophe said is that it's not just a corporate team saying you have to do that because it will happen. It's peer-to-peer testimonies, weeks after weeks, saying here is what is happening in my country. Here is what we are living. Here is what our customers are asking. And so from time to time, it helped the change management process from one country to another.
And so that made it easier for others to understand it.
Yes.
Yes, and very, very rapidly also, we modelize the scheme, the story, what's happened in China, at which speed, what's happened in Italy, what's happened in France. And finally, it helped a lot the other countries finally to understand the processes.
And are things getting better now in Russia, or are you still in crisis mode, or what's the situation currently?
In FM or in Russia?
Both.
No, in Russia we still have 7,000, between 6,000 and 7,000 new cases every day. So it's still here. The lockdown has been released 9th of June, despite this fact. So in FM, we kept the same measures than during the lockdown. We just started, we have 30% of staff coming back at the office. We organized some rotations, and I think it will be like that till every 2 weeks we adjust the measures, but I think we will not change anything before the end of August. And we still have usage of mask is mandatory inside all the offices, warehouses. But we need to manage the gap between our own organization and what's happening outside. And there is a significant gap currently.
Right, right. Yannick, I have a couple of questions for you because you're in charge of Western Europe. Can you tell me in just a couple of minutes how things went? You're in charge of France. Are you in charge of Italy also, and all those areas that were also severely impacted? How did that go?
In fact, yes, for sure, the last months were quite tough for the teams. And I did the same than Christophe described. I mean, sharing. We had shared. It was a fantastic opportunity to work closer all together. And thanks to Italian team, because we were, Charlotte mentioned, we were in Wuhan. We were 20 kilometers from Codogno. We were in Crépy. So we had to work together to find the right measure to make people safe and that feel safe. So this was a focus for us. How do we make people safe and feel safe? And then each thing that has been implemented in one country was shared the same day with other, and then modified because you implement, then you get learnings and feedback. So this is the only way we have managed it day by day. I would say half a day by half a day, implementing, testing, having feedback, and then spreading the learnings, and also we saw that all countries were updating anyway the measure. So the fact that we were able to match and to say, okay, this will become global, so we need to implement. This has helped a lot. So this was the key was here. I mean, testing, feedback, implementing, improving.
I'm impressed because this is the kind of agility you expect from a small company, but not from a major 3PL like yours. About in terms of consumer changes now in Western Europe, anyway, and in the United States where I'm based, there was severe changes in consumer spending. How did that affect your operations? I'm assuming that your warehouses are dedicated to certain types of activities, and all of a sudden everything goes out the window. How did you manage to adjust to that?
Yeah, we will come to the impact and the modification we went through. Perhaps just two learnings before. The first learning I would like to point out is the fantastic job that has been done by all supply chain, I would say, world and people. I mean, our customer, retailers, logistic provider, and I think when the most difficult, and we share a bit with Charlotte and Christophe, but when during the full day you have to stay home, and then you need to explain to all the supply chain people that they have to work because we need the goods. It has been a fantastic involvement of all the people to make the flow of goods remaining and being delivered into the shop. So this is the first learning. The supply chain community is very strong. The second learning for me that all the flows of goods have been maintained everywhere in each country, among countries, between countries. And so I would say, if I'm focused on Europe, Europe of logistics have been working during this period. For sure, there were some few moments where at the border there was a bit more control, but overall, all the goods have been delivered within Europe without any big issues. And we see that supply chain is key in such a moment. And the third learning is that you spoke about business and impact. It has been an incredible period to boost some trends that were already present before the COVID. But I would mention e-commerce and omnichannel deliveries. I will speak a little bit about local. We have been very local. In fact, I will explain what means to be local. And the last one is some new habits or offer that appeared during the crisis. About e-commerce and omnichannel, yeah, for sure, home deliveries, e-commerce has been a fantastic boom during this period. So then we had to adapt the way of working, the number of vans, of people delivering at home. We had to also reinvent the way to deliver because everyone was expecting a no-contact delivery. So this has been adapted within few days to support this request. And we saw as well that the shops have switched to click and collect, especially non-food shops. They were not able to sell, so they have switched to a click and collect, sometimes on the parking. So we see that the shop can be, and Xavier will talk a little bit later about perhaps some long-term perspective, but we see that the shop is a key to do something different and perhaps a multi-service based on the shop. So this, we saw it during the crisis. The trend about local, so what I have in mind is that we had to use local shops, in fact, because we were not able to travel. So there was a focus to corner shop, and then has obliged us to increase frequency of deliveries, to make sure there is no shortages, and usually such shops are delivered sometimes twice a week, 3 times a week. Then you had to replenish more often, even several times per day. So this has been as well modified and adapted very, very quickly. And there was a huge trend about local food. So there was a new offer from farmers trying to deliver directly. The open market were closed, so they also tried to organize some click and collect coming with their trucks, staying there, and then delivering goods to people. You saw in France, for example, in Paris, Rungis has launched an initiative to deliver also Paris direct to consumer from Rungis. So we saw a strong trend to eat local. And the third point I would like to mention is the new habit or the new offer. So we saw during that period a lot of initiatives to be able to sell and to answer to the request, people being at home or not being able to travel and to move. I spoke already about the click and collect. I will not come back, but for example, I will mention the Carrefour initiative with an offer called Les Essentiels, a kind of subscription for food, so which is something really new. You have, I don't know, 50 euro, and then you get some products that have been packed at the warehouse. So as well, we have supported this with Carrefour, delivering in Paris in few days, able to deliver 400 orders per day. So this period has also shown a very flexible way of cooperating, creating offer, implementing. So even if Les Essentiels is no more an offer, we saw the creativity behind creating an offer, setting up some means to deliver. So it has been very inspiring period, even in food, to see how we can provide new services. And just perhaps to end this part, just mention that the COVID has allowed us to see the impact of economical activity on our environment. Why? Because we saw that without economical environment, there is quite no impact on our planet. So this reinforces our conviction at FM and our strategy that we need to be people-oriented and safety first, because this was key during this period, safety first. The second is how can we increase the sustainable services we are delivering? And the third one is the omni-channel e-commerce is just not nice to have, is the growth of tomorrow, of today and tomorrow. So we need to work on that, and this is, I would say, the few learnings from the past 3 months as a fantastic boost for those subjects.
Okay, Xavier, as a IT director, how did all that impact your job, and how did that impact your IT systems, and did you have to also implement maybe more automation? Because usually when we talk e-commerce, click and collect, we're talking possibly some automation. We need the WMS to keep up. How did that impact your job in your side of the business?
Okay, thank you. So perhaps before speaking about IT, we can speak about innovation because it's Drive IT project. So what was important for us since the first day of the COVID crisis was to split in 2 times. Times for managing crisis and time for preparing future. So it was what we decided in the company since the first day. And what we saw today is that things are changing also in the way of in the relationship with our customers, because on two different points. First point is that CSR is becoming really important in our discussion. When we saw in top-to-top discussion, but we saw also in all the tenders, during the last time of tenders, it was really important today for a lot of people, a lot of companies. And it's a good thing also for the planet. And we totally agree on these points. Second point, today we have also more and more discussion about supply chain design or network. What we saw that a lot of companies today are rethinking their production design, plan design, or where their warehousing network design. It could be change a lot of things. So this is part of the change in the way of contracting, in the way of discussing. In this way, we also, getting before, we saw a lot of things also of new offers needs. What will be the main change for us is first is to design a global circular economy supply chain. So you saw a lot of companies are working about bulk and so on. And we can imagine, let's say, what are the short loops, what are the new packaging way, and so on. So this is first part of our thinking today. So it's directly linked to all our activities, both warehousing, for packing, but also transport for the reverse logistics, for example. Second one is, as Yannick said also, is urban logistics. And today, urban logistics is mandatory, and we need to design the right urban logistics by managing also pooling activities, not to have a lot of trucks inside the town, downtown, and so on, and also to create some dark stores activities. And I will come back of technology for dark stores, but you need to have very short area to manage dark stores and so on. And the last one is probably a new way of omnichannel supply chain, omnichannel logistics. Why? Because many times supply chain was splitted by B2C and B2B, and probably tomorrow it will be more mixed as an hybrid model, because lots of companies want to go to B2C and we're coming from B2B. So this is a big change also, and in the same way we are working also on packing to have less packed for these activities, and to have a, let's say, to decrease what are the problem of for economical and also for ecological way. And the last thing, so we can speak about technology and IT because we are only at to provide services to this one. What are the mainstream for us? First is digitalization, and we can have 100% people supporting the company working at home in 2 days. And so it's possible with high level of technology and data management and so on. So this is part of what we have. We saw also lots of things for, let's say, no paper, zero paper management, also for track and trace in real times and so on, because it is mandatory when you are in such a situation. So today it's a good thing because it's a good boost for no paper approach. So this is one first point, let's say, of digitalization. Second part is that we have to manage more mutualization or pooling, and when you manage mutualization or pooling, you can save lots of problems also for CSR, but you can save also a lot of money with so, and so you can have different view for supply chain and probably to have short loops on also. And for managing this mutualization and this pooling, we have to develop also some control tower activities. But today, the control tower is not only for transport, it's mainly for all the flows. So you have indoor flows and outdoor flows. So it's a big change today, and for the future, we are making a lot of investment on this way. And the last part is automation. You will have big change of automation. We saw that we need agility in such a crisis. So we change the view of automation to have more agile automation, and probably to have more robotics systems, to have more very dense systems for automation. So this is a part of the change, because before automation were in the big warehouse very far to the town, and probably they will come close to the town and sometimes in town, downtown also for automation. So this is a big change for these activities, and these are today our main objectives for this years of developing.
Right. Now, I don't know if Charlotte or Yannick wants to answer that, but would you say that this crisis is going to force us or encourage us to become more sustainable? Have you talked about, Xavier mentioned pooling. Is this going to be everybody for themselves and we're going to be actually less sustainable because everybody's just going to, manage as best they can, and sustainability becomes the least of their concern? Or is it going to be actually customers demand it and there are ways to do it and save money, therefore this is where things are headed?
In fact, there are two ways to answer. The first one is to say, okay, in fact, the trend and the habit are here now. COVID has boosted all of them. So for sure, there is a strong demand on being more sustainable. There are a lot of solutions. The only point we need to find out is how can we be sustainable from an economical point of view. for two reasons. Because first, today all those new way of buying are expensive. I mean the cost, because going into the town with deliveries, preparing these orders on warehouses closer to the cities are more expensive and so on. So there is a global cost that we need to solve. This is the first point, and the second way to answer is it reinforce the point on the cost, because the COVID has increased the gap and the differences in the society in terms of economical power, the way people have been hurted by the crisis or not. So we need to have this in mind. I mean, perhaps not everyone will be able to buy a sustainable, local, bio, and so on. So for sure, we will have these two worlds. And I think all the company and FM, like other company, need to think how to make it possible for everyone. We all have a contribution to give to the economy and to the planet. And so we believe in that. We believe it's possible. And I would say to end that, okay, FM Logistic is ready to take its part and to work on that and to propose more sustainable supply chain. So yes, it's possible, but we need to be very, facing the reality. It's not only, it will not be easy, but we all have to bring our contribution.
And to complete what Yannick said, I would say that that's why we bet on two words that were quoted, especially by Xavier. First one is mutualization, because this is one key enabler to find an economic model for greener and more circular supply chain. And the second one potentially is local. Because what we want to do, and we are obsessed by that, is to give access to a more sustainable supply chain to everyone. So this is exactly what we want to do when we want to install locker in cities that could be accessible for local shops, urban local shops, and that will not only be for retailer, but for local economic actors. We want the supply chain to be an enabler, not only for the big brands. We want to be a partner of the big brands, our customers, but also to open the window to local economy.
What about your customers? Are they asking for greener solutions? Do they right now just want to save money? Do all those solutions, including some of the automation, does it have a cost, and are they going to have to pay for it? Are they going to save money? How is it going to work?
I can just say that there is a huge focus on being greener and finding solution how to support. Waiting, there will be a larger offer in terms of transport means, for example. We see that the offer is increasing. There might be locally or from time to time some overcost, but there is a strong focus about how to be greener. How can we build together a path to come back to an economical situation that is ISO or cheaper than we have today? And there are today some ways to do it, and I think it has been accelerated, and we see just post-COVID the demand is stronger for that.
What about in terms of partnerships? Are you seeing customers looking for more agility and shorter period contracts, or are they asking for a stronger partnership because they need your support? How does that translate into customer demands in terms of contract and partnerships?
I think it's a bit early to see some impact on the contract lengths, but for sure we saw that during COVID it's possible to be very agile. We had to be very agile. It has shown that the teams working together was a strong asset, and we went through the COVID for sure with a lot of measures to protect our people, and each company and each customer did the same. But I think we went closer to each other on a daily basis to find solution, because we had no other option. And we saw that what we were implementing sometimes during weeks or months before we had days or hours to implement, and we found solution together. So for sure, I think the future is feeling good with your partner, having the same value and the same priorities, and then you are sure you are able to find the right solution. And I think tomorrow's contract will be because we are convinced we share the same value, and when you are in a tough period, you don't ask you are all focused on the same target, and being agile, finding new solution, I think will be the key strengths for tomorrow, more than the length of contract. But the length of contract is helping because you build trust among years, and when you have trust, then it's easier to react.
What is sure today is that lots of companies are ready to launch new pilots in an agile way. It was not the case for probably before, but today, as we had to change a lot of things for the COVID crisis, today we are ready to test lots of things. So it's interesting because we are not on slides, but we can test a lot of things together.
And Xavier, you mentioned all the new trends, more click and collect, more e-commerce. How do you, are those trends here to stay? How do you know how much, we saw a huge boost at first and then things went more back to normal, not quite the explosion that it was originally. How do you organize yourself and your business, especially from a technical standpoint, but also with your teams, in order to face future demand when you don't really know what it will look like?
So what is sure is that when you have omni-channel supply chain, many times we spoke about seamless customer relationship, seamless omni-commerce, and so on. And for sure, you cannot imagine seamless customer relationship without seamless supply chain. So what is sure today is that we are working to seamless supply chain. So that means that today all the systems need to have a strong communication and good communication and smart communication between themselves. So this is a huge stake for all IT systems in supply chain today. And you need also to have a very high availability systems. And so it changed a lot of things because remember, before we say logistics systems were low availability, but today it's not possible. And you need also for operations excellence, because when you have mistakes in e-commerce and B2C activities, you cannot correct during the process after that. You can correct in retail many times because you have shelves and so on, but cash systems, you have people, cashiers, you cannot do in e-commerce. So for sure, you need to change the way of working, and SLA are not really the same when you were in traditional business.
Christophe, did you notice the same trends in Russia, or is e-commerce exploding as well, or how are things on that side of the world?
Yes, globally it's the same trends in Russia. Maybe the timing is different, but the trends are the same. And for ecological topics, we have more and more topics related to zero waste, zero plastic, some green packaging, and the mutualization also is a key lever for us. And for e-commerce, we registered a significant boost, plus 40% within the last 12 months. And especially for DIY, we see a transfer of activities within the last 3 months from offline to online, with significant and huge increase of e-commerce. Even if now we notice a slight decrease, but we are in front of exactly the same topics, the same matters, and it's very interesting also to see that what is key is not the length, the duration of the contract, is how together, collectively, we will be able to test more things, to be more agile, and to take some risk altogether. And I think it's one of the key challenge. And green topics, even if it's not very fully popular here, you see that the population, the consumers, to have healthy goods, to have a better world, it's becoming key in the discussion also.
Is that in big cities, or is that across the whole country, the whole region, or?
It's essentially in big cities.
Same as in other places then?
Yes, yeah, it's quite similar to all other countries, in fact.
Okay. All right. Some words of wisdom as a conclusion. What would you say? I don't know who wants to answer this, but you know, a company that is looking at tomorrow now. Let's say, hopefully, the worst is behind us, and we're looking at the end of the COVID. But we know that we need to be agile. We need to learn our lessons, and we need to prepare for the future. What are some words of wisdom for a company that is looking to be more agile tomorrow in terms of perception of demand, in terms of adaptability to face whether it's a new sanitary crisis or variations in terms of consumption and in terms of e-commerce? I'm going to assume as a 3PL you will say don't do it by yourself. Have a 3PL help you. But other than that, what would you how would you suggest a global company such as yourself adjust to this uncertain future?
What we could say and this is also a learning we went through during this period, is first of all, invest on people. Because when you have smart people, when you have involved people, you can reach a lot. So I would say, whatever is the subject, we need to have the right people. So invest on people, invest in sustainable topics, because this is the only way to go through crises and also good time. So we need to think our business sustainable. So this is the way. As a family-owned company, you know, it's very present from the beginning. How can we be sustainable and to go through generations? So we need to always to have this in mind when you do business, or you choose a partner, or you do it yourself. It's this is the second point. And the third one, we have learned from the crisis that we are able to achieve things within a very short time. So perhaps we cannot work during 20 years like that, but this is challenging the way we are thinking on a normal basis. And there are things that appeared by testing, by learning, by feedbacking everywhere in the company, and we need to have several subjects. So when you are not in e-business, for example, and you want to launch your e-business, yes, it's possible in a few weeks, in a few days. And it's possible. So this is, I think, this spirit we need to keep in the coming months to make things possible, like it was possible during COVID, but for good reason.
But it's a fair point. We discovered that less we know, quicker we go. We are not ready to manage such situation, but we are very quick, very efficient, despite the fact that there is no super expert to manage such a situation. But it was interesting how collectively we were able to tackle the situation. And one, like mentioned Yannick, we need to continue to invest in collaborators, the mode of collaboration, the mode of working. To invest in collaborators, it's to develop the agility of the company. We cannot predict uncertainty will be here forever. If it's not the COVID tomorrow, it will be something else. And we will need to go through all these turbulences. And the key challenge for us, for the top managers, is to develop the capacity of our organization to go through. And I think it was a very interesting test for all of us to develop the collaboration, to have more robust bridges between countries with the corporate. And it's we need to continue in this direction, because we cannot spend too much time to predict, because the main learning is we cannot predict everything.
Okay, so the word of wisdom is technology is good, but people are even better. Invest in your people. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. This was a fascinating discussion. I'd just like to remind our viewers to please go ahead and vote. Use the comment section, click on the link. The vote is open and we will remain open until tomorrow afternoon European time. Thank you everyone for coming, and good luck in the future.
Thank you, Pierre.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.